What if Amy's latest dream is not just a dream, but a warning about everything that is about to change at Heartland? Season 20 could begin with one of Amy's most emotional moments yet, as she wakes up shaken, confused, and unable to understand why the images in her mind feel so real. And the frightening part is that the dream may connect directly to the biggest decisions waiting for her. Nathan, her family, her future, and even Heartland itself could all be affected. But what exactly did Amy see? Why does she seem so worried after waking up? And could this dream be telling her something she has been trying to ignore? Season 20 begins at a moment when Amy's life already feels completely different from the one she once knew. After everything that happened in season 19, she is no longer simply trying to survive the past. She is being forced to think seriously about her future. Nathan has made his feelings clear, and his proposal has opened a door that Amy never expected to walk through again. But accepting a new life is not easy when your heart is still connected to everything you have built at Heartland. That is why Amy's dream could become so important. At first, it may seem like a simple emotional moment. Amy wakes up suddenly, almost as if something has frightened her. She tries to calm herself, but the feeling does not disappear. There is something about the dream that stays with her. Instead of feeling like an ordinary dream that slowly fades away, this one seems connected to memories, people, and choices that Amy has been carrying inside for a long time. And that immediately raises a major question. What did Amy actually see? One possibility is that the dream brings her face to face with the past. Heartland has always been deeply connected to Amy's memories, especially the memories of Ty. Even though Amy has continued to move forward, there are parts of her past that never completely disappear. A dream could bring those emotions back in a way that forces Amy to question whether she is truly ready for the future she has been considering. Nathan's proposal makes this even more complicated. Amy is not simply deciding whether she loves Nathan. She is deciding whether she is ready to build a completely different life. Nathan represents something new. He represents a future away from some of the painful memories that have shaped Amy for years. But Heartland represents her family, her identity, her work, and the place where she has experienced some of the most important moments of her life. So when Amy wakes up from this dream, she may suddenly realize just how much she has to lose. And that could explain why the people around her become worried. Amy is usually someone who understands horses, understands emotions, and knows how to deal with difficult situations. But this time, the problem may not be something she can solve for someone else. It may be something happening inside her. She could try to keep the dream private at first, but Heartland is not the kind of place where emotions can stay hidden for very long. Someone close to Amy may notice that she is distracted. She may become quieter than usual. She may hesitate when Nathan talks about their future. Even small conversations could suddenly feel different because Amy is carrying this strange feeling with her. And if the dream includes something connected to Heartland itself, the situation could become even more emotional. Imagine Amy seeing the ranch in her dream, but seeing it differently. Maybe she sees the property without the people who made it feel like home. Maybe she sees herself leaving, or perhaps she sees something happening to someone she loves. The dream does not necessarily have to predict the future to have a powerful meaning. Sometimes a dream reveals what a person is most afraid of, and Amy may be afraid of leaving. For years, Heartland has been more than a ranch for Amy. It has been the place where she discovered her gift, built her career, raised her family, and learned how to survive heartbreak. Leaving would mean stepping away from a part of herself. That is why season 20 could turn this dream into a much bigger storyline. Amy may start asking herself questions she has avoided for a long time. Can she really leave Heartland? Can she build a new life with Nathan without feeling like she is abandoning her family? And most importantly, can she move forward without feeling guilty about the past? These questions could become the emotional heart of episode 1. There is also another possibility that makes the dream even more mysterious. What if Amy's dream is connected to something that happens later in the episode? Heartland often uses emotional moments to prepare viewers for bigger developments. A dream could quietly introduce an idea before reality forces Amy to confront it. That means the dream may not be random at all. It could be the first clue that something is about to happen. And if that is true, Amy waking up worried could be only the beginning. Because while Amy is trying to understand what she saw, The people around her are dealing with their own problems. Nathan is facing the consequences of selling his ranch. His family situation has changed after Gracie's betrayal, and Amy's possible future with him is becoming more serious than ever. That means every decision now carries a bigger price. If Nathan is truly preparing for a fresh start, Amy cannot keep avoiding the question of whether she wants that same future. Her dream may force her to finally confront it. And this is where Season 20 could become very different from previous seasons. Instead of focusing only on what Amy has already lost, the story may focus on what she is willing to risk for the future. But there is one question that could change everything. What if Amy's dream is warning her not to leave Heartland? Because if the dream is connected to her deepest fears, it may be telling her that she is not ready. And if Amy ignores that feeling, she could eventually find herself facing a decision that cannot be undone. Season 20. Episode 1 may therefore begin with something that looks small, a dream, but that dream could become the emotional clue to Amy's entire journey. And the more Amy tries to understand it, the more she may realize that the real danger is not what she saw while sleeping. It is what the dream reveals about the life she is about to choose. The biggest mystery surrounding Amy's dream may not be what she saw, but why it affected her so deeply. Amy has faced difficult moments before, but this feels different. She is at a point in her life where one decision could completely change her future. And when someone is standing between the life they know and the life they might want, even a dream can bring hidden fears to the surface. That is why Nathan's presence becomes so important. Nathan has already made a major decision by putting his ranch on the path toward a sale. After everything that happened with Gracie, he needs a fresh start. But he does not want that fresh start alone. He has made it clear that he sees Amy as part of his future, and his proposal has turned their relationship into something much more serious. For Nathan, the answer may seem simple. He wants Amy, but for Amy, the situation is much more complicated. She has spent years building her life around Heartland. Her family is there, her work is there, her children are connected to that place. Even her memories are tied to the ranch. So when Nathan talks about moving forward, Amy may hear something completely different. She may hear the word goodbye. And that could be exactly what her dream is forcing her to face. One of the most emotional possibilities for episode 1 is that Amy begins questioning whether moving forward means leaving something behind forever. She may love Nathan and still be afraid of what comes next. Those two feelings can exist at the same time. That is what could make her storyline so powerful. Amy does not need to choose between loving her past and loving her future. But she may have to decide how much of her past she is willing to carry with her. Her dream could bring those emotions together. Perhaps she sees Heartland as it was years ago. Perhaps she sees familiar faces. Perhaps she hears something that reminds her of the life she once had. And when she wakes up, she is left with a feeling she cannot explain. The important part is not whether the dream is supernatural. It is what Amy believes it means. If she thinks the dream is telling her to stay, she may begin pulling away from Nathan. If she thinks it is simply fear holding her back, she may try to ignore it and continue with her plans. Either choice could create consequences. And this is where the people around Amy may become concerned. Lou could notice that something is wrong. Jack could sense that Amy is carrying something heavy. Even Lindy could pick up on her mother's emotional change. Amy has always been the person others turn to when they need help, but now she may be the one who needs someone to listen. The problem is that Amy may not even know what to say. How do you explain a dream that feels more real than reality? How do you tell someone that you are afraid of losing your home when you have not even decided to leave? And how do you admit that part of you wants a new life, while another part of you is terrified of what that life might cost? These questions could create some of the strongest emotional moments of the opening episode. But there is another storyline that could quietly connect to Amy's struggle. Katie. As Katie continues to grow, she is becoming more independent and more capable of making her own choices. If Amy begins thinking seriously about leaving Heartland, the family may have to consider what happens next. The ranch cannot remain exactly the same forever. And perhaps that is the real message of Season 20. Heartland itself is changing. The younger generation is growing up. Relationships are changing. Old wounds are slowly healing. People who once seemed certain about their future are now questioning everything. Amy's dream could simply be a reflection of that larger change. For years, Amy has been at the center of Heartland's story. But what happens when the person who has carried so much of the series begins to imagine a life somewhere else? That possibility would affect everyone. Jack could struggle with the thought of Amy leaving. Lou might understand her desire for a new beginning while still feeling the pain of losing another piece of the old Heartland. Tim could have his own complicated reaction, especially because Amy's choices have always mattered deeply to him. And Nathan would be caught in the middle. He wants Amy to choose him, but he may also realize that forcing her to choose would destroy the very future he wants to build with her. That could lead to a major emotional conflict. Nathan might tell Amy that she does not have to decide immediately, but sometimes giving someone time makes the decision even harder, because once Amy has time to think, she cannot escape the questions. What does she really want? Where does she feel at home? And is she staying at Heartland because she truly wants to stay, or because she is afraid to leave? The dream may become the first moment when Amy seriously asks herself those questions. And if episode 1 ends with Amy making a decision, even a small one, it could set the direction for the entire season. Maybe she tells Nathan that she needs more time. Maybe she agrees to explore a future with him. Or maybe she looks at Heartland and realizes she is not ready to let it go. Any of these choices could create a completely different season 20. But there is one possibility that could make the dream much more important. What if Amy's dream is connected to a real problem coming toward the ranch? After the financial pressure, cattle theft storyline, and major changes surrounding Nathan's ranch, Heartland is entering another uncertain period. The family may have to face new challenges that test whether the ranch can continue exactly as it has. If Amy is already thinking about leaving, a new crisis could force her to make that decision much sooner than expected. And suddenly, her dream would feel like more than an emotional warning. It could become the first sign that Amy's life is about to change in ways she never expected. That is why the opening of season 20 could be so important. Amy wakes up from a dream, but by the time she understands what it means, the real world may already be giving her the answer. And if the dream is truly connected to what comes next, then the biggest surprise may not be Amy leaving Heartland. It may be discovering what, or who, could make her stay. The real emotional power of Amy's dream may come from one simple truth. Sometimes the hardest goodbye is the one you have not even said yet. Amy may wake up believing that the dream is behind her, but as season 20 moves forward, its meaning could become impossible to ignore. Every conversation with Nathan, every moment at Heartland, and every reminder of her past could make Amy question what she truly wants. And that is where the story could become much more suspenseful. If Amy is seriously considering a future with Nathan, then she cannot continue living in two worlds forever. At some point, she will have to make a choice. But the choice is not simply Nathan versus Heartland. It is the choice between staying exactly where she has always been and taking a risk on something completely new. For Amy, that could be terrifying. She has already experienced a life-changing loss. She knows what it feels like to have her future suddenly destroyed. So when another future begins to appear in front of her, it makes sense that part of her would be afraid to trust it. Nathan may understand that. He may realize that Amy does not need another person telling her what to do. She needs someone who will allow her to make the decision for herself. That could create a very different kind of relationship between them. Instead of pushing Amy toward marriage, Nathan could give her the space to understand her feelings. And ironically, that may bring them closer together. But Amy's family may have a completely different reaction. If Amy tells them that she is seriously considering leaving Heartland, the emotional impact could be enormous. For years, the ranch has been a place where the family always returns. Even when people leave, Heartland remains the center of their lives. Amy leaving could challenge that idea. It could force everyone to accept that Heartland is not only a physical place, it is a legacy. And a legacy can continue even when the people who created it move on. This is where Katie could become especially important. Katie represents a younger generation that has grown up watching the older members of the family make difficult choices. If Amy takes a step away from Heartland, Katie could begin to understand that the future of the ranch may eventually belong to people like her. That does not mean Amy's story would suddenly become unimportant. In fact, it could mean the opposite. Amy could finally reach a point where she understands that leaving does not erase everything she has done. She can carry the Heartland legacy with her, she can continue helping horses, she can continue being a mother, she can continue loving her family, and she can still choose a different life. But before Amy reaches that point, there may be one final emotional obstacle: her own fear. The dream could represent that fear. Maybe she is afraid of losing Heartland. Maybe she is afraid of hurting her family. Maybe she is afraid that choosing Nathan means closing the door on the past. Or maybe she is afraid that no matter where she goes, part of her will always remain at the ranch. That could explain why everyone becomes worried when Amy wakes up. They may not understand what the dream means, but they can see what it is doing to her. And if Amy finally opens up about what she saw, the conversation could become one of the most important moments of episode 1, because someone may tell her something she desperately needs to hear. Moving forward does not mean forgetting. Leaving does not mean abandoning. And starting over does not mean destroying everything that came before. That message could become the emotional foundation of season 20. But there is still one major question. What happens if Amy chooses to stay? Nathan has already made plans for a new beginning. His ranch is being sold, and he is looking toward the future. If Amy decides she cannot leave Heartland, their relationship could face its biggest test. Nathan might have to decide whether he can build a future around Heartland instead, and that could completely change the direction of their story. On the other hand, if Amy chooses Nathan, then Heartland itself could begin entering a new era. The family would have to adjust. The ranch could become Katie's generation's story. Amy could visit instead of living there. And viewers could see a character who has been at the center of Heartland for so long finally step into a new chapter. That would be emotional, but it could also be controversial. Some fans may feel that Amy belongs at Heartland. Others may believe that after everything she has experienced, she deserves the chance to create a new life. And that is exactly why this storyline has so much potential. There may not be a simple right or wrong answer. Amy can love Heartland and still want something different. She can remember Ty and still move forward. She can love Nathan without forgetting where she came from. And she can change without losing the person she has always been. The dream may simply be the first crack in the wall Amy has built around her emotions. Once that wall comes down, she may finally be ready to say what she truly wants. And if the dream turns out to foreshadow an actual event, the suspense could become even greater. Because what if Amy wakes up worried for a reason? What if something happens later that reminds her exactly what she saw? That could make viewers look back at the opening of the episode and realize that the dream was never random. It was a warning. And if that warning involves someone Amy loves, the consequences could affect the entire Heartland family. That is what makes Season 20, Episode 1 so interesting. The story does not have to begin with a huge event. It can begin quietly. Amy wakes up. She remembers the dream. She tries to forget it. But something inside her knows that it matters. And from that moment, the entire direction of her future could begin to change. Whether Amy ultimately stays at Heartland, marries Nathan, or chooses a path nobody expects, one thing seems clear. She cannot remain exactly where she has always been. Season 20 could be about Amy finally understanding that life is not about choosing between the past and the future. It is about deciding what parts of the past you carry with you. And perhaps that is the real meaning behind her dream. Not that Heartland is disappearing, not that Amy is forgetting her family, but that the woman who once believed Heartland was the only place she could ever belong is finally discovering that home can mean something much bigger. So the biggest mystery heading into Episode 1 is not simply, what did Amy dream about? The bigger question is, what will she do after she wakes up? Because once Amy opens her eyes, the dream may be over. But the choice it forces her to make could shape the entire future of Heartland. And if this really is the beginning of a new chapter, then Season 20 may be preparing to say goodbye to the Heartland we have always known and introduce us to something completely different.